Hello, and thank you for virtually joining us at the Tribal EPA Region 9 Conference. My name is Dila Packman, and I am the Lead Reduction Project Manager at the Intertribal Council of Arizona. Before becoming manager, I worked as a certification specialist within the Tribal Water Systems Department, working with water and wastewater operators in the National Operator Certification Program. We are here to introduce to you today a new program at ITCA. The title of the project and presentation is Testing Drinking Water for Lead at Tribal Schools and Child Care Facilities. This project is dealing with the metal lead. And many of you know there are many ways humans can be exposed to lead, in lead-based paint, in air, in soil, and in water. We are going to focus on the water pathway. Lead has many interesting qualities. It is soft, malleable, and cheap, and it's also resistant to corrosion. This makes it ideal to be used in plumbing. You may also know that lead is used in solder, lead fixtures, and in pipes themselves. And lead is also mixed with many other metals to create these materials. Now, lead is quite harmful to the human body, particularly for children. This slide is from the EPA, where you can see highlighted on the screen, they are stating there is no safe level of lead. And again, this is especially for children. Now, lead accumulates in their body and directly impairs their development. So high levels of lead can be associated with a reduced IQ and attention span, learning disabilities, poor classroom performance, hyperactivity, behavioral problems, and impaired growth and hearing loss. We have known about this for quite some time, and the EPA has done things to combat it. The lead ban of 1986, which required only lead-free materials for new plumbing and plumbing repairs. Other regulations have been made to reduce lead. Many infrastructures still currently have lead service lines, lead solder, and other materials made with lead. The Flint, Michigan crisis of 2014 really put lead contamination on the map, and this influenced the revision of the 1991 Lead and Copper Rule. Some of the revisions include testing in schools and child care facilities, publicly available lead service line inventories, a trigger level of 10 parts per billion, and quicker notification times. When talking about lead, we need to look at each agency, organization, and state because they all have different allowable levels of lead in drinking water. However, when it comes to children, the lower levels are the ones we really need to look at. This figure is from a Harvard report back in 2019, and as many of you know, the Environmental Protection Agency sets the action level at 15 parts per billion for public water systems. However, the World Health Organization has established an action level of 10 parts per billion. The FDA, which controls bottled water, has a 5 parts per billion action level. And if you see on the left, AAP stands for the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they have stated that it should be less than 1 part per billion. All the primacy agencies in the ITCA project service area have an action level of 15 parts per billion. To address lead in drinking water at schools, the EPA developed a program known as the 3 T's. The 3 T's stand for training, testing, and taking action. On the screen, you'll see what the cover of the 3 T's manual looks like. This manual can be found on the 3 T's website and is downloadable and printable. Along with the manual, EPA also developed a toolkit. This link you see is for the 3 T's website and how to access all this information. Now, the toolkit would be great to have in your arsenal. Their website has a bunch of documents that can be used when needing to communicate with schools about the effects of lead and why testing for lead in drinking water is important. There are a bunch of other documents and videos in each of these modules. Communication, learning about lead in drinking water, planning your 3 T's program, developing a sampling plan, conducting sampling and analyzing results, remediation, and record keeping. This is a document, 3 T's for Public Water Utilities from the EPA, and can be found at the link below. The table you see is from the document, and it compares sampling under the lead and copper rule and under the 3 T's. For the lead and copper rule, 1 liter samples are required, but for the 3 T's, it's 250 milliliter samples. This is because it is more effective to identify the sources of lead due to it representing a smaller section of plumbing. For example, 250 milliliter sample will most likely not include water from the plumbing behind the wall that the faucet is at. So how is all this testing possible? Well, there have been rounds of funding that have become available. First, for states who go around and test drinking water at public schools and child care facilities. And this comes out of the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act in 2016. Again, it showed up as a grant available for all the states, and as of 2021, they are on their third round of receiving funds to implement the 3Ts program. Also in 2021, there was money set aside for tribes, which we will get back to in a moment. The goals of this program are reducing children's exposure to lead in drinking water, utilize the 3Ts to establish best practice, enhance a feeling of trust between the community, parents, and teachers, and develop strategies to provide funding for schools that are unable to pay for remediation. This figure is from a report by the Government Accountability Office. Back between 2016 to 2017, about 43% of school districts across the U.S. were tested for lead in their drinking water. And out of that 43% of school districts that were sampled, 37% of them had elevated levels of lead. Now remember that most states follow the 15 parts per billion action level, which we know isn't safe for children, and very few states use less than that. This map is from the Harvard report that I mentioned a few slides ago, and it shows which states have programs or policies. 15 states have state policies and 10 have state programs. Now let's look at a few state examples. The state of Arizona, back in 2017, tested for lead in public schools. As a result, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality has an interactive map that anyone can access. Down here at the bottom is what you want to look for when you're on their website. ADEQ collected 16,125 samples from public schools throughout Arizona. When samples tested above 15 parts per billion, corrective action guidance took place. If you click on the green dots or the red stars, it will actually bring up the raw data and the lab notes. 52 of the schools tested were on tribal lands, and 4 of those schools reached at or above the action level of 15 parts per billion. ADEQ finished their study and published this report. About 96% of the fixtures were found to not have levels above 15 parts per billion. The 4% that did were provided guidance on taking action. Subsequently, a different state agency, the Arizona Department of Health Service, has received EPA 3Ts funding to test for lead in child care facilities. Similarly, the state of California's Water Resource Control Board also has an interactive map of testing that they did. Again, if you are interested in exploring this map, once you enter their website, just look for this box to get to the map. Many states publish their school water lead testing data, which is awesome information for the public of the participating community. However, some media outlets have used such information to their advantage in improving their readership numbers, influencing public perception through the use of fear-mongering titles designed to incite public fear. I mean, look at this one, tainted taps. Drinking water with children at schools is an extremely important subject, and the public should have open access to the testing of information for their community. However, public outreach should go hand in hand so people can have context to help interpret the information. I would now like to introduce my team member, Audrey So, who is going to give you an update about our project.
Audrey So in shadow, Toy had Lini Dimensional, Tkopa Bashin, Kilachini National Twitch in the Ste, what are son Shinley take Amagade, Ayusnasha, Okole Hosdo de Arcast and Oceanishalom. Hello, my name is Audrey So. I am the Tribal School Drinking Water Lead Reduction Project Coordinator with the Tribal Water Systems Department at the Intertribal Council of Arizona. Prior to coming to ITCA, I was a legislative assistant to 2 state representatives at the Arizona House of Representatives, who represents 7 of the 22 tribes in Arizona, but also work collectively with all 22 tribes within the state. The EPA Tribal Grant Program first round of funding was awarded in 2021. Tribal education agencies, also known as TEAs, are public schools, child care centers, and Head Start centers on tribal lands. The U.S. EPA has determined that tribally controlled BIE schools are not eligible for this funding. The WIIN 2107 Tribal Grant is a 2-year program to implement the 3 T's program to train, test, and to take action. The implementation process focuses on education and build a capacity of schools and child care centers to implement their own 3 T's program beyond the life of this grant funding. ITCA will be conducting outreach and technical assistance to the tribes within the service areas in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, and the Navajo Nation. ITCA will also be responsible for collecting water samples from the schools and child care facilities, the transport of samples to laboratories for testing, and the delivery of lab results to the point of contact for the schools and child care centers. On December 2021, ITCA released a press release along with Region 6 EPA's press release announcing ITCA to receive one of the tribal grant under the WIIN 2107 program. ITCA received the largest of the grants. It was decided that the grants would not go to individual tribes, but to tribal consortia. ITCA's service area and work plan focuses on 320 schools and child care facilities. ITCA's service area is a big area spanning EPA Region 9, consisting of Arizona, California, Nevada, and the Navajo Nation, as well as tribes located in New Mexico in Region 6, a total of 188 federally recognized tribes. In November 2021, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as the bill, changed the grant program and allowed grant funding for lead remediation in addition to testing. The bill changes authorizes for remediation where schools can address these problems than to just put signs up saying out of order or taping off water fountains and kitchen sinks. Remediation would take place following lab results of the collected water samples from the schools or child care facilities and are above the selected action level by the authorizing party. This would take the burden off T's on paying for replacement of drinking water fixtures. The participating process for schools and child care facilities to start is by contacting ITCA and letting us know you are interested or you would like for your school or child care facility to be tested. It will be a 3-step process. Currently, the intake forms, authorization forms, and acknowledgement forms are being drafted by the lead reduction team and will be available soon. We would like to develop a statement of commitment for the governing body, not the same as an MOU, to contact for all communications regarding scheduling, sample collections, access to buildings, lab results, and/or remediation. This is a tribally run project which allows for tribes to select what lead action level they want to use. It will not default to EPA's standard action level at 15 parts per billion. These levels will be determined by the participating T's or authorizing representative. Schools that have tested with the state in previous funding are eligible to retest their school drinking water fixtures. The difference with this round of funding for tribes and funding the states received would allow for schools and child care facilities on tribal lands to be eligible for retesting their drinking water fixtures, not at the standard 15 parts per billion action level, but at a level the tribes choose. Tribes will have a choice on data sovereignty. ITCA is required to provide all test results to the authorizing representative. Schools, community parents, and the tribe will be informed through this authorizing representative. There is no requirement for ITCA to post any test results for the public beyond the community and tribes. The prioritization of testing of participating T's will be selected by a case-by-case basis. Currently, the staff hired to the grant are Dila Packman and myself, Audrey So. We are anticipating in adding to our project team. We continue to build on our work plan by building marketing information for different audiences, such as tribal leaders, community members, students, school administration, school staff, and tribal utility workers. We are continuing to build our list of T's and level up prioritization for testing. With the revisions from the lead and copper rule, it would include the tribal water utilities including this in their procedures. ITCA's tribal water system has a long history of training and certifying body for most tribal water programs. This creates an opportunity for ITCA to build relationships between the Ts and tribal water utility programs. We are building a website that would provide information for our audiences and creating a database. Finally, we are selecting laboratories and working with consultants and committed to continuing our communications with the state agencies we've been in contact with and ongoing contact with participating tribes. If you have any questions or interested in having your schools tested, you can contact us at the email shown. Thank you for joining us. ITCA.